In business news, food producer Tiger Brands has reported bumper full-year profits and lifted its dividend. This despite the tough economic environment. The maker of Koo products and Albany bread says profits were up by 51%. Tiger Brands CEO Noel Doyle joins us now. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We know it was a difficult year by all measures. The war in Ukraine causing a surge in input costs, floods in KZN, and of course record power cuts, which may even have hit your factories. How did you navigate through that to receive the results we've seen released?
So Annelie, I think first of all, maybe just to put the results in context, we did have a very poor year last year with a product recall. So if you kind of normalize it, our HEPS was up about 11%, which given the first half that we experienced, we think is still a good set of results. I think we basically kind of stick to the basics of our business, get to understand your consumer, get to understand what price points are going to keep you relevant. Although we did have to push our price increases in the second half across our basket. We're at 18% compared to 3% for the first half. And that helped us with our margin. And then we also had some fair wins behind us on our export business. Our rest of Africa export business performed very well, as did the deciduous fruit business in the second half of the year compared to the previous year. So a combination of all of those and all the usual self-help efficiency measures helped give us a decent set of numbers for the year.
You talk about sticking to the basics of your business, and you are in the business of basics. You produce some of the staples, from bread to canned beans, and consumers are battling with inflation, particularly food costs. It's so difficult to keep prices affordable for customers. How are you managing the duality of trying to help South Africans at a difficult time amid global conditions that are pressing for everyone, but despite the fact that you're a business to make money?
Yeah, what we try and do is we try and procure as effectively as possible, and we make sure that sort of the benefits of that procurement position flow through in our pricing. It's a small number, but our inflation across the basket compared to the total market was about 0.5% lower, and that was really a result of other efficiencies that we could take out of the business. And then we look very carefully at how we can make our own contribution, if you like, separate from the business and the pricing decision. So this year, in the circumstances with massive inflation, particularly in the basic essentials you discussed, we put an additional 42 million rands into a project called the Sunload, which is aimed at helping 10,000 households with young children, with monthly baskets and with help in terms of being able to grow their own vegetable garden going forward for the next 10 or 11 months. So that's been one small way in which we could make a contribution. But it's really about being as efficient as possible, which has been quite challenging. You just mentioned the load shedding issues. Load shedding cost us, just in the extra cost of power, 5 million rands in 1 month, October, that's just passed. We're lucky. We have invested almost 400 million rands worth of capex over the years in generating capacity, so at least we could keep supplying the market. But that supply comes at a heavy cost, and generators, like the generators of Eskom, need to be serviced. They can't run at the rate at which we've been running at them in perpetuity. So there are some challenges ahead, and we're moving to solar. We're piloting solar in 4 sites where we've done PPAs. The first one of which will be live in December in Asanda. So those are the kind of measures that we've been taking.
No doubt you're watching the political turmoil at the moment centred around the president, because it does rattle in the investment climate and the investment market, despite the fact that investors say they're more interested in the long-term picture. How are you digesting what's happening politically at the moment?
Look, I must be frank, in a quarter like this, which is so important for us, we're sort of very focused on sort of our day-to-day execution of the business. What we tend to do in times like this is, we do spend a bit of time reflecting on what it might mean into the medium term. We try and avoid making any major investment decisions, any major procurement decisions, when you have these levels of volatility, because you can very easily be caught significantly on the wrong side of a decision. And for us, we would prefer to have a good level of average procurement rather than a high level of volatility in our procurement. So, we hope and we're sure that eventually we'll get the stability that we seek. And in the meantime, we as Tiger Brands will continue to invest for the future of the company and the future of the country. We're sticking to our long-term plans. We're sticking to our long-term belief, not just in South Africa, but in the opportunities in the rest of Africa.
You spoke a little bit earlier about that big recall this year on safety concerns of the Purity baby powder. What's been the impact of that? Because surely the reputational damage is something that you've been worried about.
Yeah, on top of the recall that took place last year, it is something that is a major concern. I think at this stage, the consumer reaction, has been quite discerning. I think there's a recognition that the recalls that we've done have been precautionary in nature and proactive, and it looks as if the communication that's gone out to consumers has not created a huge amount of backlash. But clearly, they're not events that we would like to have to repeat, because inevitably it will eat into sort of our brand equity with our consumers. But so far, so good in terms of the consumer response and the impact on the balance of our brands.
While we're talking about those recalls, and within the context of the fact that technology is advancing at such an incredible pace that sometimes leaves the systems that food producers and food regulators use to ensure that food is safe vulnerable to cyber attacks, and that's something that's been happening internationally at a growing rate, and even here locally. What do you think about food cybersecurity going forward, and what systems are Tiger Brands putting in place to ensure that the food that you produce continues to be safe for South African consumers?
Yeah, so the whole space of cybersecurity in operational technology is one that's very much on our agenda. And as part of our overall cybersecurity plans that we've put in place, and we've made significant investments in that space, it receives a lot of attention. A lot of the focus historically, as I'm sure you're alluding to, has been sort of more focused on accessing personal information, accessing accounting records. But we're very cognizant of the need to maintain the integrity of, for example, all of our PLCs, our food dosing systems, and that is being addressed as part of our overall cybersecurity plan, where we think we are keeping up with the best technology that's available and using the best service providers in this space. And I think at the moment we're fairly comfortable that that we have the kind of measures in place that you'd expect a large company like ours to have.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. That was Tiger Brands CEO Noel Doyle giving us an update on results they've received recently. Time